Welcome to Guhl Motors Project E85 on the 2012 ZX14R. It's a pretty interesting project. We're going to compare the just a standard gas tune versus an E85 tune on a pretty much stock bike. The engine is all stock. It's pretty much stock as delivered, with the exception of a Brox exhaust and a Guhl Motors GUTS flashed ECU. All right, for those of you unfamiliar with E85, might be asking the question, why would you want to run E85? What's the advantage? Why would you do that? And the biggest advantage with E85 is the methanol or ethanol alcohol that is in E85. Basically, it's made up of 85% ethanol, 15% gasoline, and that's where it gets the E85 name. And the big advantage of that is that the ethanol has a very high latent heat of vaporization as compared to gasoline, and basically what that means is how much energy is required to vaporize the fuel, and that energy that's required comes from the heat of the air. So whenever you consume the heat in the air to vaporize the fuel, you cool the air charge significantly, which gives you a much more dense air charge going into the cylinders, which basically gives you more oxygen in the cylinders so you can burn more fuel and make more power. That also combined with ethanol's oxygen that it brings in itself, just like an oxygenated gasoline like MR12 or something like that. So those two things combined really give E85 its big advantage, as we're going to show later on the gains that we had when we did this testing. Okay, and here we are with the exciting part of the E85 testing, the results. I don't know if you can see right here, but the two dyno graphs we have here, the higher green colored graph is the E85, and the blue graph is the standard pump gas. And the pump gas was tuned for best performance, fully tuned with the exhaust and everything, and then we went through and did the same procedure and we retuned for the E85. And we started out by adding about 40% fuel, and it was a little rich in some spots. We ended up leaning some spots out, but that 40% is a good place to start for anybody who's wanting to do this on their own. And then we also played around with some timing a little bit to see if we could make any improvements, and we did. The improvements were marginal, but we did make some improvements by playing with ignition timing. And as you can see here, we got 190.55 foot-pounds of torque or horsepower peak, and 111.74 foot-pounds of torque. And this was, stock bike with the Brox exhaust on gas with the GUTS flashed ECU, no power command or anything like that. And then we went through and did the same thing with the E85, and we ended up with 194.73 horsepower and 115.57 foot-pounds of torque. So, about 4 horsepower and about 4 foot-pounds of torque. But there's some interesting things along the way here. You can see that there's actually some areas where there's pretty significant improvements, and I expect to see the biggest improvements in the mid-range performance. That's what we always see when we switch things to methanol, or in this case the E85, where the biggest advantage is in the mid-range power. So here at about 6,700 RPM, we actually see that we have almost 6 foot-pounds of torque, which equates to almost 7 horsepower as well. And you can see, that there's a big increase here. There's a little less here, and then as you get up to the top, I think there's something like a 2 foot-pound of torque increase. It's about 3 or 4 horsepower all the way up through. But here again you can see the peak here where there's about almost 4 foot-pounds of torque increase. So pretty interesting results. It'd be interesting to see how this thing performs at the drag strip, to see what performance gains running this has. But I'm real happy with the results that we got. I was kind of expecting a little bit more, but that didn't play out on this bike. Some of the thousands that I've done, I've seen bigger increases than this. Overall, the cost of the E85 being cheaper than pump gas and immensely cheaper than a racing fuel like MR12 or something like that, getting similar results. I think this is a kind of a neat option. And the thing that's really cool about this is with the 2012 ZX14R's dual power modes, your high mode and the low mode, we're able to put the pump gas tune in the high power mode and put the E85 tune in the low power mode. So it's not a low power mode anymore, it's just the L mode. It's reprogrammed to be full power. It just has the E85 tune in, so you run it out of gas or drain the gas out, fill it up with E85, switch your power to the L mode, fire it up, and go run it. And if you want to switch back to gas, you do the same thing, drain it out, fill it up with gas, hit the H mode, and you're ready to go. So some pretty interesting stuff. As always, if you have any questions, just give us a call here at the shop anytime. And if you have any suggestions for anything else you'd like us to try, just let us know, and we'll be happy to help. Thank you.